Well, one of the regions that faced tough economic times in 2014 was, in fact, Europe. And RCA Namda sat down with Jacob Kierkegaard, the senior fellow at the Peterson Institute, and he discussed Europe's outlook for 2015 and highlighted which country could have the most difficult year.
Well, I think we need to first keep it in perspective that this was a region of the world that significantly underperformed expectations. So when you're talking about bright spots, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are great. But I would point to at least two things. One is that the European banking system was actually considerably more solid than I think a lot of people had feared coming into 2014. We didn't have major upheavals in the sector, despite the fact that the ECB did what is, in my opinion, was a thorough, incredible stress test. The other positives, I would say, is that actually things didn't get worse than they did. We actually avoided a recession, despite the fact that the crisis in the Ukraine became considerably more intense and violent than I think everybody had expected, again, going into 2014.
So were there any biggest disappointment, I should say, again, when you look at 2014, or any big surprises?
I think the major surprise was the Ukrainian crisis and the fallout that it had on the broader euro area economy, where it clearly dampened business sentiment, not least in Germany, which was supposed to have been kind of the locomotive for the region during 2014. That didn't happen. Germany faltered growth-wise, and so did the rest of the euro area economy. So overall, basically the growth and also the inflation performance of the region, where obviously right now you're at 0.3%, which is almost deflation and way off the ECB's target of just below 2%.
So is the divide growing or, shrinking when we talk about northern and southern part of Europe?
Ironically, actually, I think it is shrinking. Because what you see is actually that some of the fastest growing economies in the euro area right now is actually a country like Spain, a southern typical crisis country, where at the same time, as I said earlier, Germany has stalled, Finland has stalled, so the periphery, or parts of the periphery at least, is kind of coming back. And even Greece, after 6 years of recession, actually in the second half of 2014, has returned to admittedly, low growth, but nonetheless growth. So there is it's kind of a rebalancing going on, I would argue, although the rebalancing is pretty close to zero because, the entire region is close to stagnating.
You mentioned the European Central Bank earlier. How important is it to Europe's success in 2015? Clearly, it was instrumental in 2014.
No, I mean, there's no doubt that the main task that the ECB has for 2015 is to increase inflation. And well, first of all, I should say, is to avoid deflation, which actually, given the rapid decline in oil prices we have seen in recent weeks.
How worried are you about that, by the way?
Oh, I think it's sort of an irony because a massive 40% decline in oil prices for a major oil importing region like the euro area really should be a huge positive shock. And I think it will be in the sort of medium term, meaning towards the end of 2015. I think this will be a major positive boost to growth in the euro area. But the problem is in the short run, it will potentially depress further the headline inflation number below zero, pushing us right into deflation for the euro area as a whole. And so my main concern there is that the ECB is not going to be successful in avoiding that outcome, simply because they, for a host of generally political reasons, are unwilling to take very dramatic expansionary monetary policy measures, such as, for instance, doing what the Federal Reserve has done, or the Bank of Japan recently done, buying sovereign bonds.
So again, looking at 2015, what concerns you, or what region of the world, what country concerns you the most?
Well, I think the decline in oil prices that we have seen is going to pose very significant challenges for a number of large oil producers. I would say Venezuela, Iran But first and foremost, I think the crux has to be on Russia, because it is not clear that Russia really has the finances, at least in the Russian private sector, to sustain growth and avoid a financial crisis. There are major foreign exchange or dollar-denominated debts coming due for a number of Russian private companies towards the, at the end of this year, but certainly at the end of 2015. And so I think the main worry I have is really for a major financial crisis in Russia.